Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with your personal bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to your Personal Bank Show, and I got an exciting announcement. December 1st, so Tuesday, December 1st, we're going to be airing an interview I'm going to be doing with one of the bank presidents of one of the banks we use on our line of credit. So I'm going to recommend you stay tuned to that, but it's going to be pretty exciting. And like I said, the key to this is all of this is with what is the Your Personal Bank concept? It is quite simple. Those of you who have heard this, I'm just going to go real quick, but what we're doing is we're setting up a high cash value policy that's established to maximize tax-favored cash growth. It's that simple. We're trying to grow our cash. We want our money to grow. And there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can grow it consistent, steady Eddie, like to call it. That's where we can 6% dividends. That's what they've been paying currently and over the last 25 years plus. I'll show you the history. I'll show you the track record. By the way, that surprises a lot of people. They don't realize there's companies out there doing that. By the way, that's with guarantees, okay? And we can set it up tax-free too. So, I don't know. These days, 6% tax-free, not half bad, right? And access to the money, we can set it up at upwards of up to 85% liquid day one, just so you know. To at least 50%, between 50 and 85%, depending on how we structure it and all that, depending on the situation. But that's a pretty strong setup. And then to make it even better, this is where anybody who's looked at the insurance banking concept or any of its iterations, whatever you want to call it, this is where we take it to the next level. And this is where we've separated ourselves from anything else I've ever seen, frankly. And this is what I get told repeatedly. And is we've set up a bank. We get a bank involved and we do a bank line of credit. And here's the key about that. Well, if your money is in a policy earning 6%, for example, dividends, and then you access it and you're getting charged by the bank, by the way, the bank's going to charge somewhere between 3 and 3.95% interest. What's your money doing? The key is your money's still growing even after you've used it. This is what separates the personal bank concept from any other financial account that exists out there. I was just talking to a gentleman literally on the break here who's a financial advisor and all that. And he started asking, most financial advisors are not familiar with this. He wasn't either. He's a very successful financial advisor, as he points out. He had over 100 million in assets and all that kind of good stuff. And I started explaining he asked me what I did. He heard me doing some of the podcasts and stuff like that, and the radio show here, and started explaining how this works. And he started taking notes, and he found it very interesting. He said, wow, I've never heard of this. This is interesting. That's the response I get overwhelmingly from anyone just about who I talk to, whether they're an individual or a financial advisor or CPA or anything else for that matter, frankly. Again, the key is by combining the two, combining the insurance product with the bank product, we're strategically integrating these two tools to enhance both. And ultimately, it enhances your results. Because remember, where else can you earn interest on money you've spent? See, you've never probably heard that before, unless you've been listening to the show previously, of course. You see the difference? And why is that so significant? Well, it's hugely significant because how much money do we spend per year, per month, per year, our lifetime? And the answer is, for most people, quite a bit. I mean, you take the average household in America today, how much do they spend per year on just stuff? And we're talking about housing, clothing, food, you know what I'm saying? And just stuff. Everybody's number is going to be a little different, but again, what if that number is $50,000 a year? Is that reasonable? I'd say for most of the clients I work with, it's that or more. Typical household. Okay. If that number is $75,000 a year or $100,000 a year, I don't know. Your number, each one of us, our number is different. Okay. But the point is, if it's just $50,000 a year you spent, well, in 10 years, that's $500,000, right? In 20 years, that's $1 million. Of dollars going out the door. My question to you is really simple. Are you capturing any of that interest? Are you capturing interest on any of that money? In the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, the answer I get from folks is no. Those are just dollars that are going out to pay for stuff like food and clothing and housing and fun stuff and cars and whatever else you can think of. Okay, coffee, whatever. My point is, what if you picked up 2 or 3% interest on those dollars? You know, in 20 years, at 50,000 years, that's $1 million. What if you picked up 2 or 3% on $1 million? Well, that's $20,000, $30,000, isn't it? Now, somebody will say, well, that's not a lot of money. Okay. That's extra. Did you spend the money anyway? You know, did you buy food anyway? Did you pay the mortgage anyway? Of course you did. My point is, I'm not talking about changing anything you're doing really in your life. What I'm talking about is learning how to capture interest on money that flows through your hands. For most people get a certain amount of income. They'll have money come in for whatever sources they are. And a majority of that is then spent on stuff, right? Stuff to live, stuff we need, stuff we want. And a small percentage of it, whether that's 10%, 20%, whatever it is, if we're doing things well, we're able to put that away and invest it for the future, right? I'm not telling you just change anything, except what about if you took that 80% of your cash flow, for example, let's say you're doing better than most and you're putting away 20% of your gross income. That would be really strong for most people. I would venture to say, and the statistics back this up, most people aren't doing anywhere close to that, are they? But if you're putting away 10 or 20%, let's say, for the future, okay, and the rest, what's happening to it? It's coming into your pocket, it's going into your account, and then it's flowing back out, isn't it? It's just basically coming in and flowing out. You're getting income and you're paying bills. Income, bills, income, bills. That's the process. You had control of the money for a short period of time. You had access to those funds for a short period of time. But did they do you any good? Did you benefit or earn anything from those dollars? And again, the answer is no, in most cases. So the vast majority of the dollars that you come in contact with just flows through your pocket and flows out without really benefiting you in any way other than you're able to purchase things that you wanted and needed, which is all well and good. But you didn't benefit from them in any other way beyond that. Again, here you could pick up 2 or 3% interest on that by combining the insurance tool with the bank tool and creating that positive arbitrage. See, positive arbitrage is really, it's a big word, but it really is a simple concept. And what positive arbitrage is simply put, is you earn a certain amount of interest and you get charged a certain amount of interest on money, and there's a difference, there's a gap, and you keep the difference, you keep the gap. So as I point out over and over again, if you choose a steady Eddie consistent option in the personal bank concept, you can get 6% dividends today. They've been paying those dividends for the last 25 years plus. I'll show you the charts. I'll show you the history. I'll show you the history of all the different companies, not just one, of all the different companies have been doing this. Okay, all the top ones, all the top payers, what we consider the best and brightest, right? My point is, if you're earning 6 and you're getting charged 3 to 3.95 on those dollars when you spend them, what's happening? You're keeping the difference. You're keeping the gap. And the gap or that difference is between 2 and 3%. And by the way, we'll talk about this in the next segment. One of the questions I get a lot of the times is, okay, that's great right now because we're in a low interest rate environment and all that. I understand that, which is true. But what about the long term? Well, I'm going to be able to explain, I'll show you in the next segment, how that gap, that 2 or 3% gap, historically has been there, irregardless of interest rate environment, low, medium, or high. So my point is, historically speaking, long term, you should expect to get a positive arbitrage situation most, if not all years, on your money. Are you going to spend money every year? I think we all know the answer to that one. Of course we are. Okay, my point is, and if you're already retired, most people who are retired, by the way, are still earning some kind of some form of income, right? Most of them are at least getting some kind of Social Security, interest income, pension, whatever. So And that's a common misconception. Even someone who is retired can benefit from the personal bank concept because they still have income coming in, and a retired person still has expenses going out, right? You can still benefit from this concept. You can still pick up that positive arbitrage. We're going to talk about that further in the next segment. So contact us at yourpersonalbank.com and stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back. Hey, we're pretty excited because we have a big guest speaker coming in December 1st, so stay tuned. I'm going to be interviewing one of the bank presidents. He's coming in studio, actually flying in from Chicago, so it's pretty exciting. We're going to be interviewing one of the bank presidents of one of the banks we use to create positive arbitrage with the personal bank concept. So again, don't miss it. That's going to be an exciting date. Again, the personal bank. Again, we're setting a high cash value policy to generate cash to grow our money. We can grow our money one of two ways. We can grow it on a steady, Eddie, consistent basis, 6% dividends. Over 25-year history of doing that. Never missed a dividend since before the Civil War. So long-term, consistent dividend history. Or we can set up an index option where you can get today 13% upside on a good market year and a 1% floor in a bad year. So you can make somewhere between 1 and 13. Historical average is about 8.5% the last 25 years. I don't know, folks, 8.5% with downside guarantees, and we can set it up on a tax-free basis. That's not bad, okay? The 6% steady Eddie consistent every day, set it up on every year, on a tax-free basis, also not bad. Most people, when they really start looking at this, they contact me, are quite surprised. And I get comments all the time, wow, I had no idea there were companies that have been doing this and have been doing it for so long. I said, exactly. It's not a secret, but it's not a well-published fact. How's that? That's part of the reason I'm doing the show, to raise the awareness, get people to understand and recognize this is an option that should be looked into and considered. Because again, the vast, vast, vast majority of the time when I speak to people, this is something they've never, ever really looked at. Maybe they've heard about it briefly, but in most cases, like I said, I was just even on the break talking to a financial advisor who, asked me what I was doing. He was listening to what I was doing on the radio here and started taking notes. That's very interesting. I never heard this before. That's the response I get over and over and over again. The point is real simple. We set up the high cash value policy to grow our money, grow our cash, whether it be consistently or index-based, whatever, but we're growing our money, right? With guarantees, with safety, with liquidity, with tax benefits. Then we bring in the bank line of credit, and the cash in the policy is the collateral for the loan, okay? And the beautiful thing about this is it's a collateralized loan, super easy to qualify for. Literally, the applications are like a page or two. It's super simple. And the interest rates basically are typically less than what you're earning. So if you're earning 6, let's use the steady Eddie dividend example, 6% dividends. If you're getting credit at 6 and you're getting charged, say, between 3 and 3.95, that's the current interest rates on the bank lines. What's happening? Remember, this is, and you're keeping the difference is what's happening. That's the answer, okay? But here's the part that people miss. But when they get it, the light bulb comes on. And this, folks, is the game changer. This is the part that makes all the difference in the world. This is what separates this concept, this financial tool, this combination of financial tools, I should say, from everything else out there, basically. And it's this. The positive arbitrage you're earning, the difference you're keeping between the dividend of 6 and the loan rate of the 3s, is on money you spent. Hold on, wait a minute. What did you just say? I'm going to repeat myself. This positive dividend, the interest you earn, is on money you have already spent. This is where it separates. This is why sometimes, to be fair, sometimes people kind of lose track, or if they don't get the concept, they don't follow. This is where they lose it. I'm going to tell you right here. If they lose it, this is it. Don't understand it. How can you make money on money you spent? Because everything else we've ever done, any time, we all know this. You have any kind of financial account, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, annuities, I don't care. You pick any of them. When you spend money, when you withdraw money from those accounts and you spend it, what's the return on those dollars going forward? And the answer is simple. Zero. Nada. Nothing. Why? You spent the money. It's gone, right? You took it out of the account and you spent it. So everybody understands that. The difference here is when you access funds using remember, we're setting a high cash value policy and a bank line of credit, and we're combining the two. We're strategically integrating the two to work together. When you access funds here, are you taking the money from the insurance policy or are you getting the funds from the bank? Most people, the light bulb, if it starts to click, this is it. This is where it starts to click. You access the funds from the bank. What does that mean? That means the funds are still in the policy, aren't they? Remember, these are high cash value policies designed to grow cash over long periods of time. If you take the Steady Eddie option, the 6% dividend option, cash, you're going to get credited 6% historically every year, the last 25 plus years. So the bottom line is you're getting a consistent return growth on your money every year, right? The index option, like I said, it's the floor of 1, cap of 13. You're going to make somewhere between 1 and 13% basically each year. Average last 25 years, by the way, is about 8.5%. So your money's growing because it's still there, right? You didn't withdraw it. You didn't remove it. You didn't take it away from the policy. What you did is the bank gave you the money. You access it through the bank line. And remember, the bank's going to charge you between 3 and 3.95%. Most people understand that. That's pretty straightforward. But the money, what's the dollars doing in the policy? Again, with the Steady, they've been growing at 6. They've been crediting at 6. So in other words, your cash is growing faster in the policy than you're getting charged to borrow it. You're keeping the difference. That's the gap, the positive arbitrage. Now, one of the questions I get, probably one of the most common questions I get at this point is, okay, I understand, but I'm going to charge interest from the bank. Yes, the bank is going to charge interest, but you have a choice. Obviously, one choice is you could pay it out of pocket, right? Now, if you did that, you in essence have an amount that's owed. The loan never increases because you're paying the interest out of pocket. So your cash would continue to grow in your policy. So therefore, the cash in the policy keeps increasing, compound, right? And if you're paying the interest and by the way, many of the banks charge it quarterly. If you pay your interest quarterly, then the principal, the amount owed never increases, never changes, right? It stays the same. So it becomes simple interest, right? So you're getting charged simple interest. You're growing your money at compound interest. And if you're growing at 6% dividend compound versus getting charged in the 3s, simple, do you understand how over time that gap can get even wider? It can become quite significant. If you didn't catch that part, I'm going to tell you, contact us at yourpersonalbank.com because I'll show it to you. I can lay it out. It's a little hard to explain just over the radio. But those of you who understand compound and simple interest, you are going to get it. Those folks get excited because you realize, wait a minute, compound means my money's growing faster and faster and faster every year because it's compounding, right? Simple means the amount owed stays the same, and the amount I owe is not going up nearly as fast as the compound I'm growing. So your gap, it widens over time even further. But again, don't forget the key point here. And that key point is simple. And the simple point is this is on dollars that are spent. In other words, if you take the fixed option, the guaranteed option, Steady Eddie, and you just leave it alone and let it get credit, it's going to get credit at 6 like it has, historically the last 25 plus years. You're just going to grow the money based on the dividends. It's just going to grow, right? But if you access it, you're accessing through the bank line. Cash is still there, remember? So still in the policy, still growing. And you're accessing through the bank line, you're still keeping the difference. So if you went and bought a car, for example, or you paid the mortgage, or you bought some clothes, or you went out to eat, or anything, you could pick up 2 or 3% positive arbitrage on those dollars. Now, by the way, do people do that with credit cards, with points and things like that? Yes. But this is even a bigger deal because you could do it on everything you spent, every dollar you spent on everything. Okay? You see my point there. And by the way, like I said, as I was starting to say, whether you're working, whether you're retired, it doesn't really matter. Because these policies, some people have the misconception, well, I'm too old, I'm too far down the road, I can't qualify for life insurance and all that. We're not structuring these traditionally like life insurance policies for death benefit protection primarily. There is some, don't get me wrong. That's not our primary focus. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about how we can help someone even later in life gain the positive arbitrage. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back. Hey, and as I said, I've been mentioning in the other segments, we've got an exciting guest coming on December 1st. One of the bank presidents of one of the banks we're used for these bank lines of credit is going to be, I'll be interviewing for the entire show. And we're going to go into detail about how these bank lines of credit work and how well they work using them as the policy as collateral for the line. From one of the leading banks in the country who in this environment or in this arena. So it'll be pretty exciting. So stay tuned, December 1st. Like I said, the personal bank concept is quite simple. We're using a high cash value policy to grow cash, whether it's steady, Eddie, consistent, 6% dividend, 25 plus year history of that. Never missed a dividend since before the Civil War. Or we go the index option where we have a floor of 1%, a cap of around 13. So it means your money is going to grow between 1% and 13% each year, depending on what the S&P 500 does. That has about 8.5% average rate of return over the last 25 years. Both of these can be set up with in a tax-free manner. So whether it be 6 steady Eddie consistent or 8.5 average or index and all tax-free, that ain't bad either way you look at it. And then to make it even better, this is where we take it to the next level. This is where we go beyond what folks who are familiar with the insurance banking concept and whatever iteration and name you want to call it. We take it to the next level, and that is we bring in the bank line of credit. That's what Dan, the bank president, is going to be talking about on our interview on December 1st more. But the collateral for the bank line is the cash in the policy. So it's a collateralized loan. These are prime minus half or prime minus 1% loans. These are super low interest loans. Okay, it's super safe for the bank, almost no risk for them, frankly. And that's why the interest rate, they're super easy to qualify for. Yeah, it's one of the questions I get. Unless you have unless you have a default or judgment, you're basically going to qualify, okay? Because the cash is in the policy. All right, it's real simple. The application's like a page or two. It's super simple. These are pretty much, I'm not going to say rubber stamp, but pretty close to that. Okay. These are super easy. And now you have access to the money. My gosh, they'll send you a checkbook. Okay. So you'll have checks. You can literally, I have folks that are using this where they're putting money in the policies. Okay. And then they're using their bank line. They're using their checkbook or they pay them online, whatever. It's a bank account. You're going to have a bank account number just like you have with any other account. You'll be very familiar. And they're paying their regular monthly bills with it. And what's happening? By pouring the money into the policy, then accessing it through the bank line, if you're getting credited 6% dividend, for example, and you're getting charged in the 3s on the bank line, what's happening? Well, literally, you're keeping 2 or 3%. You're keeping the difference, or 2 or 3%, on dollars you're spending. And that could be on anything. It could be on mortgages, clothing, food, all these normal expenses. And if you start adding up, think about how much money you spend in your household each year. You see, if you don't, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say something that, well, I guess, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. The reality is this: if you're not using the personal bank concept to pay your monthly expenses and bills, at least, and if you can't do it all of it immediately, I understand, but building into it, if you're not using this tool, you're literally walking away from about 2 to 3% on every dollar you spend every year. Why is that such a big deal? A typical household will spend 40, 50, 100,000 a year, right? In stuff, expenses. Well, at 50 grand a year times 10 years is $500,000. 20 years, that's $1 million. It's not unusual for a household to spend $1 million in a decade or two. That's the norm. And that's 20, 30 grand a year at 2-3% interest, right? That's 20, 30 grand a year you're walking away from in your future. By the way, if you're in retirement or older or things like that, some people say, well, I don't have to. You can build this in what's called a family legacy, where you start the process and take advantage of all the benefits now, and then be able to pass that on to the next generation. You want to talk about compound interest? Try compounding money over a period of 50, 60, 70 years, because you're passing it on to the next generation. Those numbers get crazy. Okay. So if you are a retiree or grandparent or something like that, you can benefit yourself. That's one of the common misconceptions. Again, it's easier to qualify for these than what most people consider as a typical insurance policy, because we're not trying to maximize death benefit. We're trying to maximize cash. So we're going for lower death benefit amounts relative to the amount of contributions. Okay. So somebody has relatively decent health. I've got folks that have qualified easily in their 60s and 70s, by the way. Many clients. My oldest client to date was a gal 79. Numbers worked out just fine. And she's relatively healthy, not super healthy, nothing out of the ordinary. Okay. So I want you to understand, even if you're in your 60s or 70s even, this is seriously something you should look into. Okay. Now, if you do have serious health issues, let's say, or you're above that, still, it's not the end of the road. We can still insure somebody else or family member, whatever, business associate, whatever. You can be the owner and still take advantage of all the benefits, the growth, the access, the positive arbitrage, tax benefits, all of it, and pass that on to the next generation on a tax-free manner. This is one of the most efficient ways to pass assets on to the next generation. In fact, one of my previous shows, Ed Slott, one of the top CPAs in the country, Wall Street Journal calls him the top IRA expert in the country. The title of the show basically is something like life insurance is the next not SEP IRA. Drew on a blank, but it's the type of stretch IRA. Sorry. A lot of people are doing stretch IRA, stretching their assets to the next generation. Well, the tax rules now, of course, who knows what's going to happen this next year, or two or whatever. But as they stand, the stretch IRAs, basically the tax benefits of those have been taken out. So as Ed Slott stated, the insurance is the way to go. These tools are the way to go for that. But there's a lot more you can do with it than just passing on to the next generation. You can earn positive arbitrage. You can have access to your money. You can get tax benefits all while you're living, and then pass it on tax favored to the next generation. Okay? So there's a lot of things that can be done depending on your situation. And that's why I would say, I would strongly, strongly encourage you, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to talk to you about this further, or you can call us at toll-free 866-515-6280. Again, that's 866-515-6280. Check this out. Look into this on how this can change your financial future. This can allow you to start earning interest on dollars that you're spending. See, I don't care what your rate of returns are and your investments and all that. The vast majority of people are only investing a small portion of their total gross income, right? I mean, most people, if you invest, let's say you put away 10 or 15 or 20% of your income for the future, or you did that, that means you spent 80, 85, 90% of it, didn't you? In other words, that 80, 90% of your money that you earned or are earning went through your hands, basically. You earned it, you spent it, you bought stuff. And yes, you have the stuff. You got to eat, you have a roof over your head, you got a car to drive, all that's nice. But you're not benefiting from those dollars anymore, ever. Forever. Once they're spent, they're gone. Why not capture some interest on those dollars? I mean, do you want to move your financial future ahead and accelerate it? Should you still put some money away from the future? Should you put 10 or 15, 20% away? Absolutely. But shouldn't you also capture some interest on some dollars on the money you're spending, which, by the way, in most cases, is far more dollars than what you're putting away. I mean, it's the very rare individual that's investing 80% of their income, right? And living on 20%. In other words, most of us is the opposite. We're investing 10 or 20% and we're living on 80 or 90, right? Well, if you could capture some interest on that 80 or 90%, wouldn't that make a difference? And even if you were retired, don't you still have some income? You know, most retirees do. What if you capture some interest on that income? Would you have more to live on? Would your money last longer? And the answer is absolutely. So again, one of the mistakes people make, I see it all the time. Well, in fact, I'm running up on a break here pretty soon. So what I'll do is in the next segment, I'm going to talk about this very common mistake. And the mistake is real simple. It's people look at this and say, okay, this is interesting. Should I do this or should I do this other investment I'm already doing instead? And that's a mistake. In the next segment, I'll tell you why.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All righty, round and third, wrapping this up. But I promised I would cover one of the most common mistakes I see people make when they're looking at the personal bank concept. I mean, overwhelmingly, I'm going to tell you what it is here in just a minute. Overwhelmingly, when folks look at this and they start to really look into it, overall, very positive. I mean, if you think about it, how could you not be? I mean, you're talking about something that has guarantees, has safety. You can grow your money either consistently or based on an index. You're growing it somewhere in around 6% dividends or 8.5% average based on the last 25 years. Income tax free. We can set it up that way. You have access and liquidity to 50 to 85% of your money out the gate, 100% liquidity in a few years. You've got other benefits in terms of there is a death benefit involved to protect your loved ones in case something happens. And you also have funds available for, critical, chronic, terminal, long-term care expenses. I mean, all these are positive, really, really good things. And people, I can't think of a last time somebody's really, there's any negative to that because it's just, that's all very positive. Okay. But the mistake then people sometimes make, and probably one of the biggest ones is, as much as they like this, they then start comparing it to whatever their current investment portfolio is, whatever it is they're doing now. And if whatever they're doing is not working, of course, then it becomes an easy. But if, let's say their investments are performing fairly well and have so, but they're looking at this because, they like the idea, there's some interest in the positive arbitrage or growing cash or safety or taxes or whatever it may be, whatever the situation, whatever triggered them to take a look at it. But again, they start comparing like every other investment. Well, should I do this or that? Well, here, that's a mistake. And here's why it's a mistake. You see, this personal bank concept using the policy, high cash value policy with the bank line of credit, should be used in addition to whatever you're doing. In other words, actually, you should do this first and then invest. So if you want to invest, I was talking to a financial advisor about this literally like an hour ago. And he started taking notes and expressed to me, wow, this is very interesting. That's the response I always get. Almost always, I'll say. Is, well, if you want to invest your money and you want to invest in the market or real estate or crypto or precious metals, you pick real estate, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm totally agnostic to what you want to invest your money in. The reality is, if you have something you like, you're comfortable with, and it works, keep doing it. All I'm telling you is you add a step to it and increase your returns. And the step is simple. You put it in you have two choices. You can keep doing what you're doing, take your money and invest in whatever it is you invest in. Or you can put it in the personal bank, access the majority of it from the bank line of credit, and go invest in whatever it is you want to invest in. What happens? Remember, we'll take the Steady Eddie option to keep it simple. If you're getting paid a 6% dividend and then you access the funds, you're getting charged 3 to 3.95, aren't you keeping the difference? The answer is yes, of course you are. In other words, you're picking up an extra 2 to 3% on your money return, right? What is your investment doing? Whatever it does, right? If your investment makes a 7% return or a 10% return or whatever the rate of return is not important. It's going to make what it makes, right? But do you want to add 2 or 3 points to that? Well, it seems kind of foolish otherwise, right? Not to. And as I've stated, if you're not doing this, you're literally walking away from 2 to 3% extra return on your money. I stated in the last segment, if you're not doing this to use some of the dollars to pay your expenses, you're walking away from 2 to 3% return on money you spent. And how much money do you spend every year in your household? Oh, I didn't even mention businesses. I have a lot of business owner clients. Do you know how much a typical business spends in a year? Far more than most households, right? What if that business spends $100,000 a year in expenses, $1 million a year in expenses? You want to pick up an extra 2 or 3% on top of that? The personal bank tool can allow that, can allow you to accomplish that. Can you do it all at once, day one? Maybe. Depends on your financial situation. Or if you can't do it all at once, can you build into it over a period of time? Yes, you certainly can. Good friend of mine, he's become a good friend of mine. He's a physician, has practice and all. He's done this over the last 5-6 years. He's basically managed to flow 100% of his income through the personal bank, access it through the bank line of credit, pay his expenses for his practice and his personal income, and pick up that 2-3% positive arbitrage every year. Folks, if you spend $50,000 a year, and you do that over the next 10 to 20, if you do that in the next 20 years, that's $1 million. That's $20,000 to $30,000 a year you're walking away from. If you have a business, you spend $100,000 a year in expenses. Okay, that's $2,000 or $3,000 a year of interest you're walking away from there. You do that for a decade, that's $20,000 to $30,000 a year, isn't it? If you have $1 million a year business, you're walking away in 10 years, $200,000 to $300,000 per year, because that's going to be the compounding effect. Folks, we're not talking about a little bit of money. We're talking about a lot, especially if you compound it over time. I've had that comment too. Well, okay, I make an extra couple, 3%. So what? Well, and what was interesting on this particular folks, they were averaging 5%. They're doing some real estate investing, and recently they've been averaging around 5% on their real estate investments. And they said to me, what's an extra 2-3%? We're making 5% over here. Again, the same mistake I'm talking about in the beginning, comparing this to that. I said, no, you're asking the wrong question. Keep doing your real estate investing. Keep making your 5% returns. Flow it through the personal bank. Put it in the policy, access to the bank line of credit, and now pick up an extra 2 or 3%. So now your real estate investments are making you 7 to 8. So my question to you is, do you want to continue making 5, or would you rather make 7, 8 doing basically the same thing? That got their attention. That's a huge increase on a return, right? By the way, if your average rate of return on your investments happens to be 10% a year, I think most people would agree that's a pretty good rate of return, right? Whatever it is you're investing in, stock, bond, mutual fund, real estate, whatever. If you're getting 10% average over time, particularly over, you'd say a decade or two, that's, most people are pretty satisfied. Well, if you added 2 or 3% of that, you realize you increased your rate of return by 20 to 30%. Do you realize how much big of a difference that is to make 12% or 13% a year rather than 10 and compound that over a decade or two? Do you realize how much more money we're talking about? We're talking about a lot more money, not a little bit. In the first year or two, no, maybe not a ton. Over the next decade or two, absolutely. And like I said, whether you're younger, whether you're not so young, whether you apply this in your lifetime or you apply it in your lifetime and pass it on to the next generation so they can take advantage of it, you can take advantage of this compounding of a decade or 2 or 3 or more even. That's the power of the personal bank concept. It allows you to do 2 things when it comes to investing and return on your money. It allows you to increase your rate of return, whatever it is, by 2-3% basically per year. tax-free, with guarantees for the rest of your life. It also allows you to take advantage of positive arbitrage on money you spend, on expenses, bills, all that stuff we spend money on, whether it's our home or our business. And that is a significant, so that what I'm trying to say is what I'm trying to help you understand is if you apply the personal bank concept using the high cash value policy with the bank line of credit, you can increase the amount of money you earn, interest you earn, on 100% of your gross income. Not 10 or 20 like most people do, where they earn X amount of dollars and put away 10 or 20% to invest to make money, but on all of it. Every dollar that comes in, you can pick up positive arbitrage, both on the monies you invest and on the monies you spend. That changes financial lives. That changes the financial future for both you, your family, and your business. And when you employ the power, what this can do for you in your life, in your financial life, when we talk, we do reviews with our clients and we get back with them, and several years later, we're talking now, there's a difference financially that's significant. So contact us at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. And as always, stay tuned to the Your Personal Bank show on Money Radio.
Listen Tuesday at noon and Thursdays at 1 for more information on Your Personal Bank. Contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may charge. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.